1 month ago, Trump made a series of announcements that barely cracked the headlines, and now it looks like they're the most important moments of the year to date so far. The Supreme Court handed him two massive victories, and Pam Bondi backed it up with hard numbers. Trump's policy machine has not slowed down since. And if you want to understand why it's Trump unleashed right now and suddenly everything started moving, this is it. This is Andy with TrendingPolitics.com. Hit like, subscribe, and let's get into Trump Unleashed.
This morning, the Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law in striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch. The Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done. And really, it's been an amazing period of time this last hour. There are people elated all over the country. I've seen such happiness and spirit. Sometimes you don't see that, but this case is very important.
The left spent years using rogue judges to stall Trump's agenda in court, and that era is completely over. Two back-to-back Supreme Court rulings stripped away their favorite legal weapon, nationwide injunctions. So there's no more forum shopping, no more activist rulings from a handful of liberal districts. And with that legal chokehold gone, the ripple effects are reshaping the country right now as we watch. So what policies did the Trump administration unleash first once the chains were off?
Because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she can talk as long as she wants because this is a very important decision. This is a decision that covers a tremendous amount of territory. But I want to just thank, again, the Supreme Court for this ruling.
It's easy to forget just how rigged the system was. Out of 94 federal districts, just 5 liberal courts issued the majority of the injunctions that blocked Trump's agenda for years. The first part of his first term, throughout his first term and into his second term now. And a tiny group of activist judges held veto over the power of immigration, of tariffs, national security, you name it, they controlled it. And Trump's team just came with the receipts. Take a look.
As the Supreme Court held today, they turned district courts into the imperial judiciary. Active liberal judges have used these injunctions to block virtually all of President Trump's policies. To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held 35 of the nationwide injunctions. Think about that, 94 districts. And 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. No longer. These injunctions have blocked our policies from tariffs to military readiness to immigration to foreign affairs, fraud, abuse, and many other issues. The judges have tried to seize the executive branch's power, and they cannot do that, no longer.
And we've been hit with more nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century together. Think of it, more than the entire 20th century, me. I'm grateful to the Supreme Court for stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex problem, and they've made it very simple.
And while the injunction ruling was a very big deal, the second Supreme Court decision was just as impactful, especially for families. Because for the first time in years, the court sided with parents over woke school bureaucrats. With parents, can you believe that? This wasn't just a win in theory. It directly restored a parent's right to opt their child out of radical ideology in the classroom. And as millions of parents across the country are gearing up to send their kids back to school right now, this Supreme Court ruling matters.
If not for the injunctions case, we would be here talking about another great decision that came down today, the trans books case, which restores parents' rights to decide their child's education. Seems like a basic idea, but it took the Supreme Court to set the record straight, and we thank them for that. And now that ruling allows parents to opt out of dangerous trans ideology and make the decisions for their children that they believe is correct. And so we thank the Supreme Court for that. There's been multiple decisions over the past several weeks that just show why this nationwide injunction ban had to happen. For example, what I mean by that is local district court judges issuing decisions that are clearly contrary to law just because they don't like the policy of President Trump. And when it gets to the Supreme Court has to correct it. But that takes time. The Attorney General thanked our lawyers, and I'll do it again. Our lawyers are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to fight these injunctions and to emergency appeals, emergency stays, going back to the district court judge, asking them to change their view. And so their hard work is really paying off.
And with the legal shackles completely gone and parental rights restored, Trump's operating at full capacity, the capacity we hired him for. And the results are starting to pile up. From immigration to education to manufacturing, we're watching what it looks like when a president is finally unleashed. And nothing shows that way more clearly than the next move that he's just announced. Take a look.
Now, this morning, President Trump says he will announce new tariffs on semiconductors and chips as soon as next week. This was in an interview with CNBC. He also said he plans to put a tariff on pharmaceuticals. Listen.
On pharmaceuticals, we'll be putting a initially small tariff on pharmaceuticals, but in 1 year, 1.5 years maximum, it's going to go to 150%, and then it's going to go to 250% because we want pharmaceuticals made in our country.
CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro can flesh this out for us, joining us from the White House North Lawn there. Good morning, Aaron. This is not the first time the president threatened pharmaceutical tariffs. So what might this mean for people who rely on medication, not just to stay comfortable, but to stay alive?
Yeah, Errol, at least in the long term, it could definitely increase the costs of these prescription drugs, the availability. But I say the long term because President Trump has really put this caveat of at least a year and a half before these tariffs are implemented. He says that this is to allow these pharmaceutical companies more time to physically relocate to the United States for more manufacturing, though that could take multiple years. And it's important to note that right now there aren't any blanket U.S. tariffs on pharmaceuticals. As part of that European Union United States trade deal last week, there was a 15% tariff specific for pharmaceuticals from Europe, and that is already a pretty dramatic increase from the 0% that it was before. But we've seen the administration take these procedural steps to get to a pharmaceutical tariff, sector specific. They launched in April what's known as a Section 232 investigation to determine if imports of pharmaceuticals from foreign countries is a threat to national security. That's kind of just the formal step before a bigger tariff is announced. But given this timeline, we won't really know the specific impacts of these tariffs until a year and a half, when President Trump says it'll skyrocket to it.
You know, I mean, I can't even watch that clip anymore. He's sitting there saying that, you know, we won't know the impact. We won't know the impact. Have we not noticed yet that Trump wins? When Trump is unleashed, the country is better for it. Trump has won every single tariff battle there was. And he's not waiting for permission. He's already moving on tariffs and immigration and education and citizenship. It's all happening because the legal system finally got out of the way. This is what it looks like when power returns to the people who voted for it. This is Andy with TrendingPolitics.com. Stay informed, stay vigilant. I'll see you next time, and make sure you subscribe.